All right. So I am working on something that has to do with creativity, this idea of being creative. And a lot of us probably think, if you're like me, that taking time to be creative is taking away from like the things that we should be doing, or it will distract us from our to-do list. And here's the thing, that creativity can actually increase our productivity. So I, for the most part, don't see myself as being a very creative person. I'm trying as I learn how helpful it can be. Like our son loves to paint and draw and build and all the things. And so he's inspiring me to work more on this. Actually, that one is one of his creations from years ago. Um, and so I'm getting more inspired to work on this myself, because I am one who can sit down to work and work and work and work and work until I think everything's done, which really everything is not ever done, right? There's always more that we can do. So being creative has a lot of benefits, but research actually shows that taking part in creative therapies can help reduce negative emotions. So what does that mean? We can release some of this negativity and free up our energy for positive things, for things that fill us up, things that give us joy, right? There's a quote by Maya Angelou: "You cannot use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." So being creative can inspire us to do and be more creative, which kind of seems like a silly concept, but it really is true. Once we open that up, we can be creative in so many ways. So finding a creative outlet that you can enjoy can help you feel clearer minded, more relaxed, because it distracts you from the stress, and it can almost be meditative, which of course, I love. So people who draw, doodle, paint, for some people, DIY projects are like a release from the day-to-day stress that we have. Being creative gives the mind a break. It creates freedom to explore ourselves, builds confidence and self-esteem, and improves spontaneity and positive emotions. So when we create, we can do all of those things. Being creative can also improve concentration because it requires our attention. So usually if we're being creative, we have to kind of focus on that one activity. So things like art, drawing, doodling, coloring, painting, you name it. You really kind of have to focus on that one thing. Performance. So if you are musical, you play an instrument, singing, dancing, theater, like you have to be where you are in that moment. And of course, writing is another creative outlet. And that's actually probably the one that I lean into the most, because I'm always thinking of new things, even if it's creating content, writing meditation sessions, you name it. It's being creative because it's something that I'm doing. It's coming from within me. And so my experiences, my knowledge, you name it. So really that's what being creative means. Like if you look it up, I know I've talked about definitions before, but if you look it up, being creative is really just taking something from inside of you and putting it out for others to see. So all of those things can reduce stress, anxiety, and other overwhelming feelings. So the trick for me with creativity, just a little tip, if you are somebody who's like, I can't be creative because it always has to be perfect, that's me, is to not critique or analyze my creations. So when I do that, it just becomes more stressful. So if I'm like, this isn't how I want it, I don't like it, I don't, try not to be evaluating it, just let the freedom of that creativity flow. Because if you do critique it, usually then you end up not wanting to do it. So trying to allow that energy, allowing creative space. So knowing that for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, I'm going to do this activity. And when I'm done, I'm going to set it aside. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to evaluate it. It's just going to be a space for me to release things out and see what happens. Being creative helps us feel that sense of freedom because we're setting aside the to-do list, we're exploring, we're just letting go, so to speak, which most of us don't usually do. We usually are thinking through every action. We are kind of calculating, if I do this, this happens, and creativity doesn't have to have an outcome. It's really just letting this energy come out, letting your mind wander, letting that freedom come through. So I mentioned in another post earlier this week that I'm going to try something to release some creativity. So again, I said writing, meditations, planning, like even our homeschool, creating the lessons, like that's all creativity. But again, it all has an outcome. It has a purpose. I have an expectation for doing that work, that creative work. And so I'm going to try to do something that it's not connected to anything. It's just creative space. And I'm going to try to be intentional about it. Again, just by using a timer, doing the same creative activity for 5 minutes a day, something like that for the next few weeks. And I'm excited to see what I uncover, like how I notice some of those shifts in what I shared. So reducing stress, reducing anxiety, being clearer minded, just sort of letting go of all the stuff that weighs on us day to day. So if you'd like to join me in my little creative challenge, this is something I'd like literally just put together when I was exploring this topic of creativity and how I can personally lean into that more. If you want to take part in this, then send me a DM, like send me creativity or something so that I know what you're reaching out about. And I'll share what I plan to do. I will put some updates probably into my stories in social media, so be sure to check back there over the next couple of weeks and see how it's going. Again, I'm excited to sort of test this myself, and hopefully some others will join in and we'll see what happens. Reach out if you have questions about being creative, you feel like you're not a creative person and you don't know where to start. We can talk about what to do and this idea that I have and see if it's something that might work for you as well.